So you want to know when is the best time to buy a home? Well, there are very specific things to look for in the marketplace. Specifically, we're going to talk about how to tell whether or not you are actually in a buyer's market. We're going to look at the long-term real estate cycle and take a look at where we are in that cycle. We're going to look at the annual seasonality that happens predictably every year in our real estate market. And then make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end of the video because I'm going to give you my insider tricks to tell specifically property by property which ones are truly motivated sellers that are willing to let that home go for a discount. My name's Jeff Thibodeau. I'm a real estate broker here in Brantford, Ontario, and I've been helping people just like you buy and sell their homes for the past 15 years. If this video brings you any value at all, please do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps me out. And if you enjoy videos like this, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell to make sure that you get my future videos on your home screen. I'm making new content every week. If you need any help with your questions about real estate, all my information is in the video description below, and there's even a link to book directly into my calendar to have a 15-minute call. So let's get into the question. When is the best time to buy a home? If you're asking yourself this question, you're definitely not alone. It's one of the most common questions I get from home buyers. One of my favorite quotes on this subject goes like this: "The best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today." And how this relates to home buying is we all wish we could have a time machine and go back and buy a home at yesterday's prices. But since that's impossible, really the best time to buy a home is when you have the need for that home and you can actually afford it. Timing any market is an almost impossible game. But in this video, I'm going to give you some insights based on the data and also my 15-year career to help you make an educated decision to whether or not right now is the time for you to buy a home. Before we get too deep into this, I want to define the term buyer's market because you've probably heard this term in the news or heard people talk about it. As a home buyer, you would rather buy a home when the conditions are in your favor. And a buyer's market is when there is lots of choice. So there's lots of new homes coming on the market and lots currently for sale out there, but also there's low amount of demand. So there's not as many other buyers out there. When these two conditions align, we call that a buyer's market. So when the supply of homes on the market is very high and the demand is very low, we call that a buyer's market. And a buyer's market feels great to be a buyer in. When you're out there shopping, it feels like you can take your time. You can go look at multiple homes in the same day. You don't have to be rushed to make a decision. Also, you can negotiate your asking price. You're typically not in competition with other buyers on the same property. So that means you can include conditions like home inspection, financing approval, and potentially even a condition that you have to sell the current home you're living in. All this is possible when the conditions favor the buyers. Now let's contrast that to an extreme seller's market, which is how the market's been for the last few years. In a seller's market, all the opposite conditions exist. There's very high demand, lots of buyers out there shopping for homes, but fewer people selling those homes. So now it's the buyers that are actually competing with each other to pick up the best deals. So this looks like a very fast-paced market. You only can see one or two homes at a time because they're selling so quickly. You have to make decisions the same day. And typically you're competing with another buyer. So you have to make your best offer right off the bat, which means potentially asking full price or more for the house, and maybe even removing your conditions and taking on risk that you're not comfortable with. So obviously, if you had your choice as a buyer, you'd rather be out shopping and making offers in a buyer's market. So to start understanding where we're at right now in the real estate cycle, let's take a look at the long-term trends, because many people don't take time to zoom out beyond what's just happening right now. The easiest statistic I like to track for the long-term trends is called the month's supply of homes. And this is a statistic that actually combines supply and demand into one single number. So the month's supply of homes is a calculation of the number of homes currently available or available at any particular month divided by the demand, which is the number of homes that sold in that month. So this gives us a numeric representation of how much larger the inventory is than the demand. So when the month's supply number is very high, in the 4, 5, 6 or above, we'd call that a buyer's market. And when it's very low, like 3, 2, or 1, or even below 1, that's a seller's market. In addition to looking at just the absolute number, it's also important to look at the direction that the line is heading. So we could be moving from a buyer's market into a seller's market, from a seller's market into a buyer's market. Because the absolute number is important, but it also depends on where we just came from, is going to dictate how the market feels for you. So looking back on this chart, you can see that starting from about 2011 to 2014, things were pretty stable at the level of 4. Then from 2014 to 2017, the market shifted, and you can see it dropping year over year into more and more of a seller's market. This was a combination of Brantford getting sucked into the greater golden horseshoe and the overall GTA real estate bubble. It was also a time when interest rates were historically low. So as people were getting pushed out of escalating home prices in the GTA, they were looking to Brantford as a new community they could put their roots down and potentially still commute into the GTA. Now, the real estate market was incredibly hot from the end of 2016 to mid-2017 because of this supply-demand imbalance. And so in mid-2017, the government stepped in with some cooling measures designed specifically to slow down the real estate market. And you can see on this chart that it worked. You can see the line moving back up until the mid-2019 area. Then the market started getting more and more fast-paced again at the end of 2019. And already into the start of 2020, it was looking like it was going to be a very aggressive seller's market year. And then, as we all know, the whole world changed. We had the COVID-19 pandemic. And initially, that stopped the spring real estate market of 2020 as we were all on lockdown. But then it had some unintended consequences to the real estate market. The government dropped interest rates to almost zero, and the demand for a change in housing went through the roof because now that everyone was stuck in their homes, they were looking for more space, home offices, bigger private yards, and moving out from higher density cities out to lower density cities like Brantford. For the next 2 years, we saw the craziest seller's market we had ever seen, right up until March 2022, when the Bank of Canada finally stepped in and started rapidly raising the interest rates. The housing market turned almost a complete 180 at that time from its super overheated level, and you can see the line sliding right back down throughout 2022. So now we're on the far right of this chart with conditions actually favoring the buyers for the first time at this level since about 2015. So that's where we're at in the long-term cycle. Predicting exactly where we go next and how quickly is a very tricky game. Much of it depends on the Bank of Canada's shifting interest rates, the overall economy, immigration levels, and the number of new homes that are being built in the coming years. Next, let's take a look at the much more predictable seasonal real estate cycle that happens every single year. This first chart shows the number of homes that are for sale each month over the last 5 years. And now it's clear to see that in the winter months, that's when the lowest number of homes are for sale. And then it ramps back up quickly in the spring, and it usually peaks near the end of spring, early summer. We typically see a plateau through the summer months, and then inventory begins falling down again throughout the fall months into its next low of the winter. Very predictable cycle. So if you're a buyer, you're going to have the most available choice typically at the end of the spring market and through the summer months. This next chart shows the demand. That's the number of homes that have sold each month over the last 5 years. And here again, we see a very interesting cycle. It's very similar to the inventory levels. The line is lowest in the winter, followed by a spike of demand in the spring. Now, the summer and fall markets take a little bit of a twist and turn depending on the year, but you can see that there's usually a plateau during the summer and sometimes a little extra spike of demand in the fall market as people try to get a deal done before Christmas. My advice for the seasonality is it's typically best to be a buyer at the end of the two busy seasons. So you want to catch the market right at the end of spring or potentially right at the end of the fall-summer real estate market. This is when the number of homes available is the highest, but already some buyers are taking a break and coming out of the market, so the demand is falling off. When I combine these two charts into one, what you're really looking for is the biggest gap between the inventory and the demand. When you look at the right side of this chart, you can see that the gap between the bars and the line is the largest it's been in quite some time. So right now, the opportunity is wide open for home buyers who can qualify for those mortgages or are making cash purchases. Okay, I promised you the best tip for last, and here it is. Following the trends can be great to give you the big picture, but when it comes to getting the absolute best deal on a home, you do want to buy in a buyer's market, but you also want to make sure that the specific person you're buying the home from is a motivated seller. So a motivated seller is someone who has a real specific reason they need to move. There are lots of unmotivated sellers on the market. These are typically people who have their home up for sale because it would be nice to move, or if they found that dream home. Or perhaps they think that if they can get a specific price, then they can make their move plans happen. These are not motivated people. If they can't get their deal done, they'll typically just take their home off the market and stay living in their home. A motivated seller is someone who needs to move, and there could be a few specific reasons why. Sometimes they've had a job transfer and they're leaving the city or even the province, maybe even the country for work. And having a home here in Brantford doesn't make sense to them anymore. They need to get it sold. Other reasons could be a change in family situation. Unfortunate, but divorces do happen. And typically when people are getting divorced, they no longer want to live in that home. They want to get it sold and split their asset. Another unfortunate reason is sometimes the seller can no longer afford that home. Maybe they've lost their job or gotten in over their head with their mortgage payments, and they need to get that home sold or things are going to start looking much worse for them financially. All of these types of sellers and a few other reasons show a very high motivation to get a deal done. They want to get their home sold, even if that means they've got to accept a little bit less money or negotiate a little stronger with a buyer. There's another type of home seller that's extremely motivated, and that's the one that's already bought another home. Either they've just purchased it, or perhaps they purchased it years ago as a new construction, and now they need to get this home sold because they cannot afford to own two homes. They need the money from selling this home to be able to close on the next property. This is also a very motivated type of seller. So how do you tell if someone is a motivated seller or an unmotivated seller? So how do you tell if someone is a motivated seller? Well, one of the easiest ways is to just ask. We either ask the listing agent, or if the person's selling the home privately, we can ask the seller themselves. We ask questions like, why are they moving? What specific closing date do they need? You can ask straight up, have they bought another home? The answers to these questions will give you information, sometimes hints, but sometimes direct, clear information that we have a motivated seller. Another trick is when we go see a home and the listing agent is calling us right away saying, hey, did you like the house? Why don't you bring me an offer? Our sellers would look at anything. You can tell by the agent's behavior sometimes that we have a very motivated seller who wants to get a deal done. There's some other clues on the market. If you see a home consistently reducing their price systematically multiple times, that's an indication that they're willing to move the price around to get the deal done. So we'd actually be looking for multiple price reductions regularly over a period of time. That shows high motivation. So the last little trick here and the hidden opportunity is we actually want to look for people selling their homes that maybe made a mistake when they listed it the first time. This could mean they put the wrong price on it right out of the gate. Maybe they didn't put the work in to do the minor repairs and upgrades and the home staging that was required, or maybe the marketing plan was just a flop. These homes have possibly been overlooked by other buyers, and now they're kind of just sitting there collecting dust. They can be great quality homes that are just not presenting themselves well to the market, and this can be your opportunity. These are, I call them like the hidden gems or the ugly ducklings. This is where we find a lot of deals, and as an investor, these are the type of properties I'm always looking for. Okay, to summarize up what we've learned in this video, the best time to buy a home is when you actually need a home and you can afford to buy it. But if you had a choice, you would definitely want to buy a home in a buyer's market when you have the advantage and the conditions are in your favor. Looking at the long-term trends, we just came out of the most extreme seller's market we've ever seen, and it's nice, easy conditions now compared to that. Where things go over the next year will really depend on the Bank of Canada's interest rates and the overall balance of supply and demand. And then looking at the annual seasonality, the two best windows, in my opinion, to be a buyer are right at the end of the spring market and right at the end of the fall market. So basically summer and winter, the opposite of when it's great to be a seller. And then when we're out there looking for homes, we want to be looking for motivated sellers who are willing to negotiate with you and have a specific reason to sell. If we combine all of these things together to make a plan for you, then you're going to get a great deal on a home you love. I hope this video was very useful to you. If it was, please smash that like button. And of course, remember to subscribe. If you need any help from me, you can click that link below to book a call with me, and all my contact information is there. Please stay tuned for the next video. We've got another one coming up for you.